Today, the weird writer in the woods is even weirder than usual because it is cold outside. I don't like it. Well, I don't actually mind the cold too much when I'm inside, but I'm not a fan of it when I'm outside. So here I am. I have returned. It's been a long time since I did one of these, but I decided to do it in my weird little hooded sweater, which is my favorite thing ever. Like, I wear this to like bonfires and stuff if I know I'm going to sit outside in the cold. And I've got my cup. I was thinking the other day about like editing tips and Weasel word lists and how they can kind of become a writer mind virus. And here's what I mean. When I first started writing, I didn't have like this idea of bad words and good words. I think that we all start at like this natural place where words are words and we just use them as we would when we're talking, or how we've seen them used in other books, which can lead to us like copying things that other writers do, even subconsciously. But when you get into like the writing community and the editing community, you start finding lists of bad words. And I don't mean like swearing, I mean like people saying, oh, you can't use adverbs or very or somewhat or weaselly words, or like ways to just clip word writing like down to the most bare minimum. It's like, don't say sit down, say sit. And you get those lists. And for a while, you go through a stage where you get hyper editing, and then you stop writing naturally. You just start thinking about all these words bad and start taking them out. And I think a lot of writers go through that. I think I did. I was very, very worried about passive voice when I was like into that editing stage, and I would look for any sentence that had this word was in it very suspiciously. Also, like I didn't want to use the word very. So I tried very hard I tried diligently to find substitutes for that. I tried to avoid adverbs and instead come up with a stronger verb. All those things that they say, and they're good tips. But the thing is, they're just that, they're tips. And after a while, you start realizing that you lose a lot if you always adhere to them religiously. I got into it a little bit in a Facebook group the other day because somebody said that they wanted people to stop using a very specific word. That was a pretty inoffensive, like obvious, basic word. And their problem with it was pretty inoffensive, obvious, and basic. So of course it was boring. But sometimes you want that word because it's the most natural. And I was like, I don't even know that that word is being overused. I don't think I've ever called it out when I'm reading a novel. It's like, this word is used too much. The word was space. Like she thought that there were better words than space to describe areas, which sometimes there are. Yeah, like if I've said right now, I wouldn't say I'm sitting in a space. I would say I'm sitting on my porch. I wouldn't say I moved through the space if I was moving through a forest, but I might say I moved through the space if it's just like a big open area in the middle of a room, you know. So I think the important part is that once you get those words in your head, you start seeing them everywhere and you internalize them as bad. It can start to affect your writing and make you write less naturally. It can make you start also judging things that you read, and you're starting to see the words rather than the sentences. You should never have a list of words based on what somebody else tells you that you need to just delete from your work. Delete. It should, but you probably do have words in your books that are overused, but they're probably very specific to you, and you probably need to have either find them yourself or have somebody who has read your work and is familiar with them tell you that they're sticking out, and not just because they read them on a list of words you should cut somewhere. You need that personal attention to your writing, like an editor who understands your voice, because there's a lot of different ways to write. Like I like to write very naturally. Like I like to write like I talk. I promise I don't use the word like as much as I do, but I blame that on being a 90s kid. In my writing, though I do use like in dialogue and when I'm doing sometimes, because like I write characters who are modern American, and sometimes I do talk a little bit casual. When I'm writing fantasy, less so. So for me, the naturalness of writing trumps things like overused words 99% of the time. Another thing that you can write for is efficiency. Some people just want the most clipped, like efficient prose possible. Like I mentioned, the sit down thing. Like sit is one word shorter than sit down, and they both essentially have the same meaning. So why would you have the down? And my answer would be because it sounds more natural. And theirs would be, well, it's less efficient. So then they choose that, and that's a fine way to write if that's how you're going for it. There's some very popular authors who are just efficiency of prose, say the most of as few words possible. And on the other hand, you have the poets who want that rhythm and cadence, and they're looking for not just the word that gets the meaning across most efficiently, or the word that sounds the most like spoken speech. They're looking for the word that sounds the most poetic or has the most meaning to it. And that's fine too. Yeah, they put a lot of thought into every word, but not every writer is like that. And I think finding out the kind of writer you are, whether you're looking for like efficient, fast prose that's clean and crisp, or you're looking for poetic, lilting prose that like um, goes all over the place using big words and maybe sometimes does take extra words to say something because it just sounds better. Or if you're like me and you just want it to sound like, a friend is telling you a story. Um, that's up to you and what kind of writer you are. And nobody else should be able to like dictate that for you. Now, if you find the Weasel word list helpful, if you like to use that as part of your editing, I don't think that's wrong. Like I said, when I first started, I kind of got into that and I was like, okay, so delete just, delete absolutely, delete immediately. And for me, it went too far and I had to pull back and readjust. That said, I probably readjusted less. I was probably like here with the overuse of those words. And then I came over here with the way too much underuse of those words. And then I kind of somewhere in the middle. And that's probably a good practice for things, especially if you're pre-publication, you can afford to like hone your writing a little bit. So yeah. So that was my little rambly talk in my hood, sitting on my cold porch. I'm waiting for the Conveniently Married to a Superhero books or order that I arrived, which has me worried because it's Saturday. And the mail usually comes before noon here, even on Saturday. But the delivery notification says 9 p.m. And I know that we're close to the holidays. That said, they have never delivered mail that late here. And I'm very worried that that just means they're not going to deliver it today because they said before 9 p.m. they're just going to say, it's too late. We're not going to do it. This feels like something they do out here. Yeah. Also, it's cold. Did I mention that? All right. Well, hopefully that gets here. By the time I've posted this, I probably will have them and I will be very happy. Bye.